Hey everyone, this is D'Armond, the creator of ChartLogic. Welcome to CL202 Indicators. In this lesson, we're going to learn about how ChartLogic makes use of technical indicators. There are a number of built-in indicators that we'll take a look at, and we'll see in detail how to use the custom indicator to use any well-behaved third-party indicator within ChartLogic strategies. If you're ready to get logical, then let's get started. Here's where we are in the ChartLogic course. Indicators are pretty straightforward, really. Using the indicator condition, you select and configure an indicator, and then you have access to that indicator's data, which you can then use in your strategies. We'll go over how all this works. We also have the ability to refer to third-party indicators, which represents another great leap forward in capability. In addition to the handful of built-in indicators, the entire universe of MT4 indicators is now available to be integrated into your automated trading. I will show exactly how to extend ChartLogic with a third-party indicator. The indicator condition dialog should look pretty familiar by now. It has the same features we've seen in the other conditions that we've taken a closer look at. There's the cycle, which controls how often the indicator will recalculate its data, and the expiry, which says how long that data is good for once it's been calculated. You also have the option to either save the indicator value in a named variable or to perform a test with the value returned from the indicator. It's doing one or the other at a time, not both. If you provide the name for a variable, then the fields for configuring the test are hidden as a reminder. The return type for the indicator data is always a double with a precision of -1. If you want to explicitly save a value with a different data type or a precision, then you can use the variable condition to select the value and store it in a named variable with the type and precision that you prefer. ChartLogic will convert the value to that data type if it can. Click the Select button to see a list of the built-in technical indicators. When you select an indicator from the list, the parameters used to configure that indicator are available in the dialog. Let's take a look at the RSI indicator as an example. The main advantage of having the built-in indicators available is that their options are already defined. You just need to configure them. For each parameter, you can see the data type, and depending upon the type, there are different ways to provide the values. Some parameters are select lists. These are identified as type enum. You can see and choose from the available values by clicking the drop-down field for that parameter. For instance, with the price field, these are your options. Any parameters that are of type Boolean will let you simply click to choose between true and false. If you have a color data type, then you can get the color picker dialog. Otherwise, you just type in the value. Once you've configured all the fields, you can click the Test button to get a response from the indicator with these settings to make sure that it's working as expected. Let's also take a quick look at the ADR Level indicator. This is not really a built-in indicator in MT4, but it's something that we use all the time in position trading, in particular with the ADR pullback strategy. So I wanted this to be really easy to accomplish in ChartLogic. I would not use the ADR level indicator if you just want an ADR value. For ADR, use the ATR indicator with the daily time frame. There are several places where ChartLogic references ADR, like setting a stop loss or a take profit distance as a multiple of ADR, or measuring the ADR of an open position. You don't need to set an ADR value yourself for these to work. It's just built in. In those cases, the ADR period being used is one of the ChartLogic inputs with a default value of 10. The ADR level indicator lets you get the ADR high and low prices and the ADR high and low percentages. If you're not sure what I'm talking about with the ADR high-low levels, there's a video on the channel that goes into all the details. Briefly, we get the ADR value for the current chart. If you measure up from the low of the day by the distance of 1 ADR, that's 100% ADR high. Measuring down from the high of the day by the distance of 1 ADR is 100% ADR low. In the ADR level parameters, that level field is the percent of ADR. When the ADR mode is the high or low price, the value returned is the price on the chart, where ADR high or low is that percent. In this screenshot, it would tell you the price at which ADR high is at 100%. When mode is high or low percent, the level field is not used. The indicator will tell you how close price is right now to either 100% ADR high or low. For instance, if price is currently above the day's low by 1/2 of an ADR, then the ADR level indicator would return 50%. Prices moved 50% towards ADR high. In the chart logic files section of the website, there are sample files for both the ADR levels and the ADR pullback strategy, where you can see how this is being used. Back when I first started talking about chart logic, I was asked if I was going to provide an indicator that would be used to represent a moving average crossover. At the time, I couldn't do it yet, but I knew that the idea was that you would be able to script this yourself using data that you get from the moving average indicator and then comparing the values from different candle shifts. So now I wanted to show how to do this. Let's define two moving averages, a slow and a fast. My slow is a 50 simple moving average, and my fast is a 20. I need 4 pieces of data, the slow and the fast values from 2 candles ago, and the slow and the fast values from the previous candle. And then I just need to compare the values. Fast was previously below the slow, and now fast is moved above the slow. It's incredibly simple to represent this concept in chart logic. Now, of course, we know that this is not robust enough to build a trading strategy around. I wouldn't use an MA cross as an entry condition, for instance, but it demonstrates how easy it is to represent these ideas, and this can be used as a starting point for more sophisticated trading logic. Now, if all that chart logic could do was look at data from the 11 or so built-in technical indicators, it would still be pretty useful, but kind of limited. Just because I chose to add RSI, MACD, Ichimoku, and moving averages doesn't mean that these are the only indicators that are useful to other traders. In the indicator condition, one of the options for a technical indicator is the custom indicator type. When you select this, you are given the 4 parameters that are used by all custom indicators. Those are name, time frame, mode, and shift. The name needs to match the compiled file name in your indicator folder, including the file extension. Mode refers to the data buffer that you want to read data from. I'll show you how to figure this out in a moment when we look at a live demo of this on the chart. And shift is, as usual, which candle you want to get data for. 0 is the current candle, 1 is the previous candle, and so on. Most indicators take input parameters as well. If you don't provide any input parameters, then it will use the default values for all inputs. You can add up to 6 parameters here. You have to know the data type and values to provide. Hopefully you have some documentation from your custom indicator that explains how to configure it. But if not, just look at the inputs for that indicator. When you have everything set up the way that you want it, click the test button to verify your connection to the custom indicator and see the value that's returned. Let's go ahead and take a look at how this works. Okay, so here we are in a chart in MT4, and I've got chart logic running, and there's nothing else going on. There's nothing, let's bring up the indicators list. There's no indicators to even bring up. And what I want to demonstrate here is configuring a custom indicator that I have downloaded from the market. I don't know anything about this indicator. In MT4, you have an option to open your data folder. And so I've just opened the data folder, and I'm going to navigate in here into my indicators folder. And here's all of my indicators. Inside my indicators folder, I'm going to go down into the market folder because this is where I've downloaded this indicator from. And this indicator is called Full Fractals. I don't know anything about it. I don't know how it works. I don't know how to integrate it into a strategy, but I'm going to test integrating it. I'm going to test accessing it with chart logic. What I need is the full file name, including the extension. So I'm just going to copy it to the clipboard. So we'll create a new strategy. We will add a logic set, and then we will add an indicator into this logic set. And for the indicator type, I'm going to select custom. And now I have the 4 main parameters, 4 common parameters that you configure for every custom indicator: name, mode, time frame, and shift. For the name, it has to be the path name relative to your indicators folder. So because this is in the market folder, I have to type market, and then I have to give the backslash that is the separator for directories, but because this is a string and the backslash is an escape character, you have to actually give 2 of them in the string. And then you give the full file name, including the extension. So this is how you tell the indicator condition what indicator it's using. You have to give it the relative path to the file name. All right, mode refers to which data buffer I want to get data from. So what data buffer do I want? Well, like I said, I don't know anything about this full fractals indicator. So in order to see if I can get a sense of what it's doing, or at least how to interact with it, I'm going to put it on the chart and take a look at it. So here's full fractals. It's got some inputs. I'm not going to change any of the inputs. Okay, and so it looks like I'm getting some support and resistance lines. I'm getting these arrows that are being added. So I still don't really know how to use it, but what I can see now, because it's on my chart, is over here in the data window, there are 4 rows that have been added because of full fractals. So each of these is a buffer, and they're numbered starting from 0. So full fractals, this one is number 0, and then this one is number 1, 2, and 3. Even though they're named value 2, 3, 4, it starts from 0 from the first one. So 0, 1, 2, 3, and that's the mode number. So here where it says mode, I want mode 0. And that would be this first one, this full fractals buffer. And then the time frame, we're on an H1 chart, so I'm going to leave it to H1 so that we can compare. And then for the shift tells me what candle I want to get the data for. So if I mouse over the first candle here, so this is candle 0, and I can see looking in my data window over here on the left that at candle 0, when I have my mouse over that candle, there's no data there. So if I were to test this indicator, I expect zeros. Yeah, there's no data for that candle. So if I step back through these candles, here at candle 4, I have a value for buffer 0 and buffer 2. So let's go back to candle 4, and I have buffer 0. And when I hit this test button, what I'm expecting to see is a value that matches this 0.9034 that was displayed. I had to move my mouse, displayed in the data window. So 0.9034 is what we should see when we test that. 0.90338. Okay, so we are showing it with more precision. With the number in the data window is rounding up a little bit, but that's fine. And then if we go to that 012 data buffer 9051, so let's look at that data buffer. So that would be mode 2, and let's test that. 90510. Let's see, 9051 again. So they're rounding. So that's great. So what I've just shown is that my connection to this indicator is working correctly. And like I said, I don't really know anything about this. I don't know how to use it. I don't know what these different buffers mean or how I should respond to different values, but I can access the data and then I can integrate that data. And so I could set that as a variable that I could then use somewhere. I could do a test of the custom value. Here I can compare it to another saved variable. It's just another piece of data that I now have access to in my strategies. Okay, let's do a little bit more here. So let's open up the indicator properties, and we saw that there were some inputs here. Okay, so I have a horrible memory, so I have a little tool here that lets me grab a screenshot and keep it floating. So we're going to keep this thing handy. And so what I want to do is add parameters to configure. Let's say, this is an indicator that I'm familiar with. I know these inputs, and for the purposes of my strategy, I use a different value for these inputs than the default values. These are the default values. We didn't change anything. So let's see. The key thing about the parameters is that they have to be in the right order and they have to be of the right data type. So let's see if we can add some parameters. So I've got a button here in the custom indicator where you can add custom parameters, and then it adds a row. And so this is parameter number 1, and I've got just like the others, it's showing me the data type, but this one is a button, and when I select it, I can choose the data type. And it looks to me like this is an integer. So candles on the left is 5. So I'm gonna select integer here, and let's increase that to 7. So I'm assuming that in terms of the logic of how this full fractals indicator is working, that this candles on the left is saying how many candles to the left is it going to look in calculating its values. So we're going to ask it to look 7 candles to the left. And when I'm doing this for the first time, I usually like to test every parameter that I'm giving just to make sure if it stops working, I want to know when it stops working. So we can test it. I'm still getting a value. That's great. So I'm going to add another parameter. The next parameter, it says candles on the right too. So let's change that to an integer and let's make that, 3, I don't know. And then we'll test it and I'm still getting my data. So that's fine. All right. The next one down, it's support and resistance levels true. So let's add another parameter. And that is a Boolean. I've already got Boolean chosen, but there it is in the list. When we're doing this, when a chart logic strategy is running, it's usually running without a chart. Usually there are no objects unless you happen to be on the chart for the symbol where chart logic is running. And furthermore, it's not going to just, the custom indicator that is being accessed via chart logic is itself not on the chart, really. It's just getting you data in memory as part of the, the execution of the code. So it's not really going to have an opportunity to draw anything on the chart. This doesn't place the indicator on the chart. It just accesses the indicator's data. So it looks to me like this parameter, param3, about drawing support and resistance lines, it looks to me like this is an option for running the indicator when you put it on a chart. And so I'm going to set this to false. We're not drawing anything. Okay, so we're turning off the support and resistance. So this is how I would make sure that the parameters that I am adding for this indicator are working correctly and that I'm sending the parameters into the custom indicator and getting the data back from the custom indicator, and I compare it to what I'm seeing on the chart in terms of what candle I'm looking at. And like if I'm running this for real, then I'm probably setting this to 0 or 1 instead of, because at the moment I'm just testing it to make sure. Okay, so that's how you would put custom parameters into a custom indicator. You have to know what the parameters are, you have to know the order that they come in, and you have to know what the data type is. And you can usually figure it out by looking at the input properties for your indicator. Ideally, you have some documentation or some information from the developer that tells you, how to use these parameters. I don't know anything about your parameters. I don't know what they do. I don't know anything about your indicator. All I know is, what the custom parameters you've asked for and the data type and then the values that you're providing. All right, that's it. That is how you can add and configure a custom indicator into a chart logic strategy. Thank you for watching. Chart Logic is available in the MQL5 market. If you liked this video, please give it a like to let me know that this is the kind of content you're interested in. And if you're so inclined, you can subscribe and click the notification icon to be notified when I post new videos. Leave a comment below to let me know if I made any mistakes or if there are any features you would like to see in future versions.